Hello, this is Harry Paden. I'm the host of the Paden Perspective. This is still season 2, episode 8. In this episode, I'm going to do my best to give you my opinion on the pandemic, experimentation regarding black people throughout the history of this country in particular, and why I think you should take the vaccine. I've taken the vaccine, so I'm going to give you that information. Now, first of all, pandemic. Pandemic is something that becomes global. In other words, it's not just a neighborhood. You could call it a pandemic, but that's stretching it. Pandemic tends to go country to country and, spread worldwide. History of some other pandemics, because in the realm of infectious diseases that can be caught by others, a pandemic is the worst case because it comes from other places and spreads to where you are. It doesn't know borders. It doesn't say this is like some people, I'll be nice, say this is a certain country's pandemic. That's crazy, insane, and shows a lack of education and intelligence on the person who says that. So pandemics may originate in a country, but by giving it that name, it's just probably more racist than anything else. And I'll talk to you why as we go on. Also, there's another very important thing that I want to relate to you regarding the vaccines. We now have vaccines, 3 of them specifically, and I think another one is in the works. But one of the vaccines, a black woman was instrumental, a black scientist, in helping to develop that vaccine. Did you know that? I know that, and I want you to know that. And you should tell your children about that. So I'll give you the name and we'll go on. Hopefully you'll look and listen, because people like, if somebody was drop kicking me right now, you guys will probably be, watching that, sharing it with your neighbors. I don't care how many shares and likes I get. I do, but I don't. Unless you would share it, because this is, to me, in my opinion, vital information. But let's talk about some of the pandemics that have plagued, again, not only this country, but the world. Malaria. You just simply say the name malaria, and most people of a degree of knowledge will know malaria was a very, very deadly disease. Tuberculosis also goes by the name of TB. Another one, leprosy. And those who are biblically read know that that's even mentioned in the Bible. Lepers, as they were called, people who had leprosy. We all know influenza, the flu, smallpox, another pandemic. So those are some, so this is not new. So we now are in the midst of a pandemic. Going all the way back, back in the time. That's one of those songs that I remember, back in the time, way back. Well, 430 BC. BC generally is related to before Christ. In Athens, Greece. Now, see if you remember this from history. The Peloponnesian Wars. That was during the Peloponnesian Wars. Disease spread through Libya, Ethiopia, and Egypt. It crossed the Athenian walls as the Spartans laid siege. So even though they were in a war, hey, the disease didn't care. As much as 2/3 of the population died. Some of the symptoms: fever, thirst, bloody throat, and tongue, red skin, and lesions. They suspect that this disease was actually typhoid fever. It weakened the Athenians and was probably the reason that they were defeated by the Spartans. Again, if you're sick, you're disease ridden. So that goes all the way back. Other diseases, other pandemics, there's quite a few. But again, I spoke of leprosy. Leprosy was around in the 11th century, Middle Ages. And, it was one of those diseases that COVID, you may not know a person has COVID except that they're sick. They may look sick. But leprosy left visible traces. You had lesions throughout your body, and it became a real shun type disease. If you walked upon someone and they saw those, they said nope, because leprosy was very contagious. It was a slow developing bacterial disease. It caused, again, sores, deformities. Back at the time, they believed it was punishment from God. So if you had leprosy, you were being punished by God. Not true, but, again, that's what they believed. It's now known as Hansen's disease. More than likely, a person named Hansen had something to do with either the diagnosis or the cure of that disease. It still, did you know this? It still affects tens of thousands of people a year, and it can be fatal if not treated with antibiotics. And, again, most modern places, probably know and treats it very well, but there are a lot of countries where medicine is not readily available, and you can imagine it would plague those countries because they don't have the treatment. Another disease called the Black Death. I don't like things that are labeled, black. Yeah, I just don't, but that's what they labeled it, the Black Death. It's also known as the bubonic plague. It also killed a large portion of that population, 1/3. And it was around 1347 AD. So this plague, it spread throughout Europe. Dead bodies, listen to this, dead bodies became so prevalent that many remained rotting on the ground and created a stench in the city. They had so many dead bodies, they stopped removing it. England, the large country, England, and France, large country, both powerful at one time, two of the most powerful countries in the world, England and France, colonizers. That's what they were. They were so incapacitated by this plague that they called a truce to their war. They were in a war. They said, whoa, we got to stop fighting each other because we got to deal with this plague. The British system collapsed because of their economic loss. They lost money. It costs money to combat plagues. The bubonic plague. I won't go much into this, but there's a Colombian exchange. That was the diseases that the Europeans brought over to the Native Americans, who they called English. They called Indians because they thought they had navigated to India. Actually, they navigated to what is now known as America. They were really lost. But they brought many of their diseases to the Native American population, which didn't have these diseases because they were such pristine, working with nature type people. This disease still is a disease out there today, but when it came around 1981, it ravaged and it scared the community, and oh my goodness, it really shut down a lot of things. HIV. HIV was a virus, and it was spread and it weakened the person's immune system. In other words, the immune system is what helps you fight colds, help you fight other bacteria. This disease took on your immune system and ravaged it so that if you caught this disease, even a cold could kill you because you couldn't fight it. HIV, human immune, I can't, okay, it's, HIV. We all know it. HIV, which leads to AIDS. HIV is one part of the disease. AIDS is the more fatal part of the disease. It was first observed in the gay community. So it became a gay disease. Oh, if you're gay, you're going to catch HIV, and you're going to catch AIDS, and it's God's punishment because you're gay. Now, research has shown that it's not just a gay disease. You can catch it if you're heterosexual. You can catch it. It's still a sexually transmitted disease. You won't necessarily catch it other ways, though you can catch it other ways, but you can't catch it by touching somebody on the neck, those type things, like leprosy. No, it's not. It's generally mostly spread through sexual transmission. That's when people really started using prophylactics, we call them rubbers, because that was shown to reduce it. But now with the development of medicines, HIV and AIDS is not a death sentence. The greatest example of that is Irvin Magic Johnson, who, shocked the world when he announced that he caught or he had HIV. But if you look at that young man, he's still the pillar of health because he takes his medicines and he does what he has to do. He's still around. And again, to look at him, you wouldn't know he has any disease. And some of the medicines now, you can be undetectable. In other words, no one can tell through testing that you have it if you take the medicines. So that's another one. We're almost up to now, modern day. 2003, SARS, severe acute respiratory. This one, again, they're attributing this to China. That's what they say. So it started with bats, spread to cats, and then the humans. And so they here say that it started in China and then developed into 26 other countries, and it had many deaths, and it was one of those diseases that spread. Not as much as some diseases, but it was a disease that was out there more recently than some of the others. Then 2019, many people say 2020, but actually 2019 was when some of the first inclinations towards what is now known as the COVID pandemic. November 2019, the first case appeared in China. So it did appear in China. And then 8 more cases in December. Then there was an expose. A Chinese doctor, Dr. Wen Lang, he defied, because in China you don't spread negative news, but he told the world about it. And that's when people, oh wow, this information got out because China was going to keep it a secret. They don't like bad news coming out of that country. I know, I've traveled there. He died, actually died from COVID, less than a month after he exposed it. And that's where we are now, in the midst of a COVID disease. The numbers now are frightening. But here's what, you know, has exasperated a person such as myself. Many people in the urban community, some people call them the minority community, and nothing minor about me, so I'm not a minority, you know, that whole negative word. But in the urban community, people of color community, because of the communities being, you know, condensed, poor, not able to do certain things, it has spread much more in those communities, and the death rate is staggering. You know, around March of 2020, that's when things really got serious. We heard of it, then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you start getting reports on the TV every day talking about the death toll. And it really got frightening because it really took on a life of its own. And I think the first time we really knew it was serious when it shut down an NBA game, a basketball game. People were in the stands, thousands of people. The players were bouncing the balls around, and they canceled that game. That's when people knew it was serious, because that's money. Look, you cancel a game, all them people gonna want refunds, concession stands didn't make any money, commercials didn't get played, started taking on serious ramifications. And again, I'm not going to rehash the history of it, but we're in the midst of it. But we know that black people, we've been subject to some experiments throughout the years, forced sterilizations on the poor. They would experiment on us with diseases because we were slaves. You know, they had us and did whatever. We couldn't say no. So that's the history, and that makes some, in modern day times, alarmist. And we say, oh no, they're going to experiment on us, and I don't want no part of it. Well, here's the difference. I did say, because I try to do my research. I'm a fact person. I don't just go on opinions. Opinions, everybody has their opinions, but I like facts. I love facts. And I do great research. That's one of my college professors told me. He told me, he said, I've been here 25 years, and I've never seen anybody do this great research. So I don't know if he was fluffing me, but he told me that, and I'm always going to live with it. He didn't have to tell me. But I do great research, and I think he spurred me to do even greater research. But here's where we are now. In the midst of the pandemic, where 550,000 people have been killed by this virus. 550,000, 500,000, more than 500,000 have been killed by this virus. Over 30 million people. Now these are U.S. numbers. I'm sorry. These are just numbers for the United States of America, because this is a worldwide pandemic, have been infected. 30 million people. But here's something you may not know. There is a black woman who is a scientist. Her name is Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, Corbett. Her first name is Kizzmekia, Kizzmekia, Kizzmekia Corbett. She's on the forefront of the development of one of the vaccines, the Moderna vaccine. When they found out, they went to work to give Trump credit. He said, look, develop this disease. We'll take away some of the restrictions because most of these vaccines got to go through a load of testing and everything. But we were in the midst, and people were dying. I mean, literally just dying. And give him credit for that. He said, look, do what you got to do to develop it, and we'll worry about how we restrict it. Corbett she's a young woman, an expert on the front lines of a global race for SARS, which I talked about, and COVID, the vaccines. And she's going to go down in history as one of the key players in developing the science that really is helping. I took the Moderna before the Johnson & Johnson one shot came out. I took the Moderna, and I took it in 2 shots, and fairly healthy guy. No real problems. Had a little soreness, a little lethargic. Lethargic is just tired. When you took this, but I didn't have any other symptoms. I was great. I felt great. I feel great now. I still wear my mask. I still limit going out. Fortunately, I'm retired. I don't have to go out. I try to stay away from people. But now they've developed, again, 3, almost 4 of those diseases, of those vaccines. But certain populations, black population of color, we still think about the Tuskegee experiment and some of the other historically exploitative things that were done to black people, many without their knowledge. And we say, I'm not going to take it. They're just trying to kill black people. Well, I understand the trepidation, but here's the difference. I went to take my vaccines, and where I went, at least 80% of the people there were Caucasian. So I'm trying to figure that out. If they're trying to do something to black people, why are mostly white people taking the vaccine? How does that work? Did the vaccine only, affect us negatively? The white people is going to be okay? I dare say, don't take the shot. Just go visit a COVID vaccine place and see if the numbers. I have someone that works very closely with it. Won't mention her name, but she works very closely with it 5 days a week. She's at vaccine sites, and she corroborates to this day. White people are taking that vaccine, and we're still hesitant because we say that they're playing games. And I dare say, I don't think that that's the case. My research has not shown that. Dr. Corbett says that that's not happening. She helped develop the disease, so maybe she's a traitor within her race. I'm being sarcastic. But this is why it's very important that we educate our children. She's a scientist. She got her start. She participated in a Project SEED, all capital letters, SEED. It was a program for gifted. They use the word minority. I don't use that word. For gifted children of color. It allowed her to study chemistry in the labs at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. It landed her a full ride to the University of Maryland. She spent her summers at laboratories, earned a summer internship, and she is who she is now because someone took the time to develop in her a person of color and fed her interest in science. And now she's helping save the world. That's why I don't get racism. People who try to deny education to people of color. That person could be Dr. Corbett, trying to save the world. Lord have mercy. Maybe I'm dumb. Never that. Because I went to America's finest schools. So I thank those who helped me get to where I am, because I have contributed to the world. I have 6 children, 22 grandchildren, and 7, almost 8. My children are populating the world, great grandchildren. And they're all doing great things because it's in the blood. You know, it got passed down. Education is the key to your future. No matter what you want to do, whether you want to be a janitor, be the smartest janitor you'll ever be. But just wanted to spread that news. Dr. Corbett, Kismika Corbett, Corbett, do your own research. Dr. Fauci speaks highly of her. I love Dr. Fauci. He speaks the truth. He's not, one to mention. That's why Trump didn't like him, because he spoke the truth. So as we go on, I recommend taking the vaccine. I took it. No deformities on me. My zipper may be up, but y'all can't see that, but I see it and I'm going to zip it up. Those things happen. But look at that. What are they trying to do to me? Huh? Okay, I'm being a little, I'm a jokester at heart. I'm in good health. And if I say so myself, I look pretty good. I'm able to move my limbs. I have COPD. That's a respiratory, like asthma. But look, I'm talking, I'm breathing. You wouldn't have known that from talking to me. I advise all people, white, black, Chinese, take the vaccine. It doesn't matter which vaccine. Take a vaccine and protect yourself, protect your family, protect me and my family, protect the world. Again, I do my research. I took mine early because I wanted to prove if there was any deformities, let it come to me because I led a good life. Let it come to me. I haven't had any deformity. Again, I took mine back in February. What is this? March already. It's been a month. We're into April. And again, I haven't been sick a single day from the vaccine. I still wear my mask when I go out. I will continue to wear my mask, and maybe for the lifetime. And I like wearing the mask because, again, I have COPD, and it does restrict my breathing. Vanity-wise, it hides his pretty beard and his pretty mustache. Truthfully, I hate it because I love my beard. But again, take the vaccine. Take the vaccine. Take the vaccine. Especially people of color. Don't let the fact that you think that someone's doing something to you cause you not to take the vaccine and you end up dead. Again, that's my opinion based on the facts. Harry Paden, to God.